It changed. We should be okay now, right? It changed my sound. Where'd my sound go? Let me. My audio. Why don't I hear you? I hear me through my headphone. Huh. Can you still hear me? YouTube can hear us. Hey, Pink, can you hear us on YouTube? Can you hear us on YouTube, Pink? Oh, so you're muted over here on StreamYard. You know that? Okay, wait. Yeah, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you on StreamYard.
Okay, so we should be good now.
Yeah, but you got the feedback again. Which device do you have your headphones connected to? The StreamYard platform?
To TikTok. Okay, Hawk.
Can you guys still hear me?
Can you guys still hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, is there any feedback now?
Mm-hmm.
This is weird. This is the same setup we used last time. There was no feedback.
Let me try to put a headset in, a Bluetooth for my phone, and maybe
because I have earbuds in for the TikTok, and then I'm just letting the laptop pick me up, but I put the volume down, so they're not even really getting the.
Okay, maybe it was me. I got my Bluetooth in this ear. Okay, will you say something?
All right. Are we getting double sound now?
Okay. I don't think. No.
So we're good?
Yeah, I think we're good. I got
All
you
right,
on both
let's
ears.
rock then. Sorry, guys. You know, we still not retrograde. We got a little bit left.
I'll work it out.
We can't explain it. But yeah, thank you for bearing with us. Okay, so lovely soul empress and Jamal Robinson from 720 Astrology. We back in the house. We're gonna do our third episode of the Venus and Mars show. We have been looking forward to this. Thank you, everybody who's watching us via TikTok and YouTube. And before we get started, and before I give the floor over to my co-host here, I just want to tell you guys, I'm sure y'all heard about the TikTok stuff, okay? And the possible ban. And I want to tell y'all, please do follow us individually on all the sites, okay? But as well, we are getting a podcast going for you guys so that we can keep this energy going even after all of this situation. So do stay posted for that. Okay. So without further ado, 720 Astrology.
All right. Thank you, Lovely. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And I wanted just to piggyback on what Lovely said. Please also share this live. Share it with your tribe, with your folk. Hit that screen. I think what they say, double tap the screen. That's what I be hearing other people. Come on, double tap that screen. So do what you do. Tap the screen till it crack and share it. But again, thank you all for tuning in, and to also echo what Lovely said. Yes, we don't know where things are going as far as social media, and it is exact timing because Uranus or Uranus rules over the internet, and things involving it can be expanded right now with Jupiter in contact with Uranus. So yeah,
I
be
would
sure
also
to.
say with that,
Mm-hmm,
not to interrupt you, but the Pluto being in Aquarius right now with the internet as well. But yes, please proceed.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so Pluto can be secret operations, and covert means of doing things. And when you couple that with the powerful Uranus, and y'all bear with me, I normally pronounce this Uranus, but that's the traditional. I'm gonna go back and forth. Either way, I'm talking about the same. I'm trying to get consistent. But Jupiter coming in and expanding things, we don't know. But either way, we ain't gonna stop doing what we do. So follow us. We both have a YouTube page. Link up with us through our YouTube. Follow us on TikTok, while we got it. And until the clock stops ticking, we're gonna keep talking. I know that's goofy, but we're gonna keep moving. But
I would also say Spirit has told me that TikTok is not necessarily leaving us. It will be changing.
Mhm.
Okay. So Spirit is basically saying there might be a brief time period, but I think it's going to go under a revamp is
Mm,
more likely. But
mm.
I'll leave that
See
there.
that.
I'm sure we can have more conversations about that later.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Um, Everybody always talks about we've been looking towards the Aquarian age with such romantic eyes for so long. But the dark side of Aquarius is that it can be very robotic to where you remove the individualism of people for the sake of groupthink. Everybody got to be lockstep. Everybody's got to follow in and have no actual their own face or identity. And so that's one of the dark sides of potentially of Aquarius is communism is Aquarius, you know? So we got to be open and open-minded and clear at looking at both sides of the spectrum. Nothing is just always beautiful. It's always a flip side to every script. But like you said, that's for we
Yeah,
can.
and I would add to that, right? When we use the word communism, right, and in this new timeline, and how you have a certain part of society that is fighting for maybe a more fair system, which could be described as socialism, right? And then communism, right? And the two sides of that, or the healthy balance, right? The masculine and the feminine, right? So when you look at that, it shows up in every arena.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we are going to be facing um, a shift in our reality, as well as the card that associates with that is the hangman with Aquarius
Mm,
energy, right? So it makes me feel, that the perspectives that we need to start, and that's what this timeline is giving, like having to separate oneself, some healthy detachment to be able to look at things from various perspectives. But yeah.
I know this kind of can you for us novices to tarot, can
Mm-hmm.
you give a brief correlation of what the hangman and how it correlates to Aquarius?
So, okay. So part of one of the because there's many schools of thought or imagery that could be
Mm-hmm.
attached. And I actually like have a whole course that I wrote out about basically like the numerology and the tarot, and learning
Mm-hmm.
tarot with me is probably very different than somewhere else. But I would say that the hangman, one of the images is hanging from the gallows.
Mm.
Okay, so hanging from the gallows, or let's say crucifixion, right? And
Mm,
is that self-imposed, right? Because when you hang upside down, right, you're gonna get that as above, so below, right? Or another perspective,
that's what I
is
okay.
the sun rising or setting?
Mm,
Um,
very Aquarian. Now that, yes. Okay.
okay, you feel me? So there's a part that could be external, right? In the sense of like you could be under persecution, right? But then at the same time, are you delving into why you feel persecuted? And what is the mirror of that? And is that the actual perspective that's happening? Or like, even when you think in terms of Zen, like, when they tell you, you holding the frequency within you, and it could be a total other situation happening outside of you, right?
Mm,
So it's how you and maybe I really feel that in my existence because of my Mars placement.
mm,
Okay, because my Mars placement, I know, and I've said this in a video before, it's very Aquarian in the sense that, people think tug of war, it's like pulling and letting go, but there's a third stance, right? And this is like just holding position.
mm,
And that equates to like the inner knowing. So like nothing can be necessarily taken. There's power in knowing that you can create your own reality, and that is the hangman. Now, how you let that affect you in the negative or the positive. Like I heard a lot of people talking about this Uranus Jupiter conjunction and how bad things can happen. Well, with any of the conjunctions, if you're not harnessing the energy is going to go somewhere. So as a practitioner, okay, and someone who does rituals on a monthly basis, I recognize that
thank you,
the
Flower
point
Girl.
is to harness it
Mm,
and use it in the best way that energy could be used. Instead of letting it happen to you, try to direct it.
yo, what the perfect segue into the conversation today. Because you said about the hangman is about the ability to see from a physical fitness standpoint. When you said tug of war, so when you are resistance training, you have concentric when you're pushing the weight away from gravity,
Mhm.
eccentric when the weight is coming to the gravity, and then isometric is when you're not moving at all. It's the stabilization, and you was like not necessarily pushing or pulling, but in that state of isometric stabilization where you hold your power. And if that is not a very Taurian statement, because Taurus is the epitome of fixed energy, to be
Right.
able, because Aries says, I'm rushing forward. I'm this. I am. And then Taurus say, okay, you are something now. Now sit here and hold it
Right.
and develop that into something of value.
Right. Or
So
the seed
the
breaking
seed.
through.
That's right. That's right. So wow. Okay. So I yield the floor. How you want to get this?
Um, so I'll just preface my own experience, and then I'm gonna let you get into that, because I feel like you're probably gonna give them the more technical versions. But speaking as somebody who came in with particular gifts as a child, the natal chart was confirmation of stuff. So had I not known, and you're going to touch into that, that the 12th house had something very spiritual about it, right? Then I might have looked at my stellium and said, girl, you going to the nut house, or or you going to jail. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like astrology and spirituality, they very much hold hands. You can't really separate, and numerology, tarot, all of that. You can't really
All
separate
of
it.
them.
Okay? This is what makes it a system that cannot be divided, I feel.
That's right. I
Okay?
concur.
And so I feel like your chart is like your maybe a spiritual blueprint of what's going to come down the pike. Just like you have your fingerprint, it could be like your fingerprint. Now, what you may have more things, certain things that are stronger, more innate, and I would say that they probably come with stelliums and certain particular placements, right? But you will feel that in your spirituality, because I remember as a child, I didn't know that everybody didn't hear spirit. I thought everybody did it until somebody was actually like, "Oh, you hear," and then I realized that others couldn't. And I think that something about natal charts is that when you hear it, like when you get your reading and you hear something about yourself that is true, you know it instantly. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, I want to give some background things from a word origin standpoint, because we're talking about how to find the magic in your birth chart. And I first want to clarify the word magic. The word magic is mystified, which can make it seem unattainable to the novice. Thank you all for the likes too and for sharing.
Yes,
Um,
thank you.
but the word magic just means power. And the thing is that everybody is actually magical. Everybody. Now, the thing is, some people can more easily access it. And magic is not in one bag. Magic comes in a multifaceted way of showing up. Um, Lovely's describing her magic is, in some schools, would be considered to be clairaudience. So clair means clear, and audience is hearing, clear hearing. So there's no, we live in a sound chamber of frequencies that are a bunch of white noise. So a person who has clairaudience has an ability to tune their ear in a manner that others may not have the ability or struggle to where she's able to hear spirit.
Right.
Now, my gift is maybe not as acute, but one of my gifts is that I'm a little bit of everything. And mine is because I have Uranus or Uranus in my 12th house. I pick up things that I'm not supposed to be able to learn. I have an ability. Let me give an example. When I used to bodybuild, we had a trainer named Herman. And Herman was this like a genius who was crazy. And so I heard somebody else that I worked out with said one time, Herman had me take 16 amino acids for a meal. And amino acids are these, we used to take these big old horse pills. And so I never knew why. I never heard from him why Herman had him do that. But in my mind, I was able to figure it out without nobody teaching me. Because I got the bottle of the amino acids and read the back, and I saw that each amino acid had 1 gram of protein. And I was able to click the dots. Oh, he wanted him to get protein without filling his stomach up because he was dieting for a show. That is the magic of Uranus in the 12th house. I can learn things and I don't necessarily need anybody to teach me. I taught
Right.
myself astrology. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's got some type of magic in your chart, and you have to. So there's three things, and I'm gonna yield the floor, lovely. The realization, the acquisition, and the activation. Because it don't matter what you realize if you can't activate it. You got to realize it. You have to acquire it, and then I have to activate it. So we're gonna hopefully kind of touch on some of that as we go through
Yes.
this discussion.
I think that when you mentioned the Uranus, it's funny because my Uranus is with my moon in Libra in the 6th house,
Mhm.
and it's opposing my 12th house stellium, right? So it's kind of like spirit saying you're going to use your gifts with the moon, like the conversation. It's going to be in service of others because of that Uranus. And I probably do it in a very weird way. And the reason why I say that is because, like what you said, it's the realization, the acquisition, and then the activation. And for speaking for myself, and I'm sure there's a lot of people watching right now who can relate, although they may have it in another area, right? Is that for me, it became a segue. Like I started with tarot, even though I was hearing stuff, but didn't necessarily know what I was hearing, right? And then I started with tarot at 13. Then, when I was in my early 20s, I really started to get into astrology, but it wasn't until I was 28 that I started casting my own chart. And you got to think, back then there was no computers, so I'm drawing it with a plate, making the circle, like doing it the old school way, like and then later, came the ATRs, but who knew that was actually bringing me back to ancestral lineage? So it can be like a roadmap. Your chart is kind of like a roadmap to how you're going to come to that journey as well. And I digress, but I'll give you the floor.
Oh boy. Okay, so look. Oh, okay. I don't look. I gotta say this.
Okay.
It is your birthright to know how to access your magic through your birth chart and the other modalities and sciences that Lovely mentioned. But because we're talking specifically about the birth chart, I'm just using that. I want you to understand what the Inquisition did. It vilified having access to this layer of your own being, or these, not just layer, but this multi-layered being of self. And it relegated this complex unit into just, I'm this, I follow this path, I serve this God, I read this book. When each life, each soul is like, if you go to New York or downtown Dallas and look at a skyscraper that's got hundreds of floors, that's that's the equivalent of the layers that's in each of us. And so by us reclaiming our birthright, it's your birthright to be able to look into your own self and figure out what your gifts are. That's your birthright. It is a form of healthy protest to say I have the right to know myself, which is the greatest thing that is going, is to know thyself. you know so in doing that, you are actually being magical just knowing yourself. That's why I want to make
True.
sure I'm clear on that. Knowledge yourself is top tier magic, because it's top tier power. you know so I don't know, love, do you want to?
I'm just gonna add one thing to that because
Okay.
I almost climbed out my skin when you said the whole like the Inquisition. Okay, and speaking as as someone who works very deeply in that energy and who comes with the mark of the spiritist or the medium or what some people would consider the witch, okay, and the persecution that has taken place is beyond comprehension. It's so broad, like even as we're coming to it, we really can't fully understand all that we're up against in this deprogramming. Okay. And this coming to know oneself, and you said that's the power, that's because that's the godlike or the Christ-like consciousness. Okay. To and you know, then we got to talk about the Christos, and that makes me want to have a whole Reiki conversation. And you know, but point being, a lot of what we rely on now were secondary gifts. Okay. They were secondary gifts. I'm a firm believer that language was developed because we lost the ability to hear telepathically, and that some of us still possess, even if you can't hear the words 100% clearly, we hear the vibration or the tone. This is why when you receive a text, you'd be like, you could feel the shade.
Or a comment on social media.
Correct. Because you are listening, okay, with a different set of ears. Okay. And your third eye operated in that fashion too. That was your main way of perceiving things. That takes me back to the hangman and the different perspective. And we've been beaten into submission of not using our gifts. So yeah, I give you the floor back. But yes, I completely agree.
Yes. I wanted to throw this out. My perspective on this today is a lot of this is going to come from the 12th house, because the word magic itself is associated with Pisces, which is the natural sign assigned to the 12th house in the natural zodiac. But I wanted that just as a foundation, I want to make this clear that I think the water houses themselves, and when I say water houses, we're talking about the natural zodiac. So even if you are an Aquarius rising, which means you're going to have Taurus in the 4th house, that house still has a water signature because the house sets the tone. Okay. So I want to make sure I clarify that. But I think that the water houses, which are 4, 8, and 12, they hold mystical potential. Not saying that that's the end all be all, but you want to especially look at that in your chart. And I just want to give a brief overview. The 4th could be magical power associated with your bloodline or your heritage, because 4th house is your roots. 8th house is your own individual occult world, because it's 8th house is you. It's you sharing, but it's also when you talk about other people's money and the karma of marriage. But we're talking about just from the magical standpoint, it can be things that you individually have buried in you. Your 12th house is the pool. And Lovely and I were talking in one of our behind the scenes, and I described the 12th house like you strolling down by the river, and it just so happens you stick your hand down in the river and a fish comes by and you grab it. It ain't necessarily yours, but it's yours because you were there at that moment. And because the 12th house is the collective unconscious, and the 8th house is your personal unconscious. Hope that makes sense. It's your underworld. The 12th house can be something that you were floating by, was floating in the river at that time. That's why when you get those moments of inspiration, when spirit delivers a message to you, if you don't take it and do something with it, that shit keep floating down the river, and somebody else whose ear is tuned in can pick it up and take your idea, because when it floated by, you said, I don't feel like sticking my hand and catching that fish. And somebody else might, and you'll be thinking, how did they get my idea? Because it was never yours.
That's right.
You
That's
know.
right. Um, so something that has always been my takeaway on the eighth house
Mm-hmm.
is that because it precedes the seventh house, okay, which is the relationship house,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you look at that in the sense of like perspective and the mirror, and all relationships are a reflection of you, yada yada yada, right?
Mm-hmm.
um I also feel like, because it's like death and taxes, right, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, that there's this aspect in it that says it's what came from the relationship or your relationships in a broader aspect, and whether they survived or died.
Mm.
Okay. And so, in other words, if you didn't nurture what was given in the fourth, the eighth is going to reflect on whether that shit just died, like you just let it go, okay, or the relationship and let's say in a marriage wasn't strong enough, so it died, and there might be taxes or things that are related into separating what's yours and what is mine, like what you said in the last Venus and Mars show about coming together is a death to become one. Well, then when
Mm-hmm.
you get to the eighth house, there's this separation that happens again, in a sense. um so I feel like that can also be an indicator of what you have not put your full attention to, or that you should.
Which leads me to this. When I'm in session with people, I often tell them that a lot of times pain is necessary to activate your gifts. And the eighth house is where we can find sometimes a lot of trauma. And the trauma is going to be trauma that we are aware of. Because 12th house can oftentimes be trauma that we might not consciously be aware of, because it might have happened to your mama while you were gestating. It might have been that something happened with your daddy while you were gestating. And because we live in frequency and we pick up this frequency, but the eighth house can be something like you remember when you were 7, 8 years old, you remember not fitting in, or you remember some type of abuse that might have occurred. And that thing can either subdue or turn on a magical gift, because pressure sometimes either it's gonna bust pipes or it's gonna make something else, something new out of you. Um,
I feel
so
like
that's
the hangman seems to be the main reference for this episode, because th- we have a choice. And I talk to my inner groups about this all the time, about the half empty or half full, when you talk about your cup, right? So this is the difference between one person going through the same trauma as another, and one excelling and the other one not excelling. It's because of the way you perceive said trauma, or what you do with that death and rebirth. Okay. So I feel like that is it goes back to what I was saying. When you have those terrible times that are born in pain, the worst of times, usually when you look back, if you use them accordingly, they end up reflecting to you some of the best of times, even though you didn't perceive it in that moment, because you might look back and say, wow, that year that I lost my job and my apartment burned down, God forbid, I had to start over, but I found out what I was made of that year.
Yes.
And by the end of the year, I had a down payment for a house because I never hustled so hard in my life. Like, you know what I'm saying? So the eighth house to me really brings that feeling of what you're gonna do with the hangman, right?
And the way the hangman is positioned reminds me of a bat.
Yes.
And
Oh,
the
I put
bat
it away. Yeah.
sleeps upside down. And the bat coincides. The bat and the owl both kind of have this Lilith type of energy.
Yeah.
And I know that I know that stokes the fire.
Yes.
Um but there's a certain wisdom that is inherently available through the eighth house, through the pain, um and through, like you say, the hangman allowing you to see things from another perspective. And because the other thing about the eighth house being that it has the signature of Scorpio is, we know there are three animals associated with Scorpio. There's the scorpion, who will give you the kiss of death, Judas. There is the eagle, who is a supreme hunter. But
Right.
when this eagle takes the nosedive to the earth and blows up, then the highest form of Scorpio is the phoenix. And the
Right.
phoenix is that energy of transformation, which is what the whole ritual of Easter is based on, which is really Anana. But it is the dying or the shedding of the skin and becoming. So in a nutshell, eighth house is an extension of your will.
Yes. I will also say that in relationships, right? Because it's in other words, you get into a relationship, you marry into a family, that's also their trauma house. So how that affects you, or how because when you marry somebody, you marry their family too, whether you recognize that or not, right? And then that becomes part of what you've come to heal from what you were saying last time, right? Right, that relationship is a death, right? Then the eighth house is also working through the individual wounds in those things and whether they can be done together or they have to be done separately. So there's a lot of that as well. And it can be based on your own trauma experiences from your fourth house or from your lineage that gives you the ability to look at it either positively or negatively as to whether you can handle these outside relationships that may be triggering that same mirror from your fourth house.
I like that. Well, do you want to swing a little bit into some more specifics as far as
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. I mean, because I can just get caught up on just the depth of those four houses. It is
well,
like
we can keep
we could
going with
get stuck there. No, go ahead, go ahead. I think
because
because we'll get lost. Like
okay. Let me just say this then, and then fuck it. If we
okay,
get lost, we get
all
come
right,
find us somebody. Um, I'm gonna say this one thing. So a trine, if you
okay.
have a trine between 12, 4, and 8, part of your magic is going to be an ability to access water. And water is, think of all the different things water can do. It gives birth in the fourth. It
Okay.
it congeals in the eighth. And because water's stagnant in the eighth house,
Right.
Scorpio. But that stagnant water also holds life in it, because Scorpio is also restrooms. and you think about your urine has ammonia in it, it can be used to fertilize soil. Your feces is definitely a prime fertilizer. So
Correct.
so that's the magic. So the 12th house is water that's changing. And what is changing is the water starting to warm out, starting to warm up. And so if you have a trine between those water houses, you're naturally going to have access to deep emotion within yourself. And the challenge you're going to have is to balance that shit, because
Right.
the same thing that is your gift is your albatross in your chart. You always, oftentimes, you're going to find your gift where you find your greatest obstacles, you know.
Yes. Yes. And I would also say for those, because this comes up, and you touched on it briefly when you first started talking about the water houses and their connection to spiritual gifts, and how the 12th house is a water house, and all those houses that we're discussing today are water houses. Um, Often you may not have anything in a particular house, and you will think, well, that house is empty. But like, my 12th house is Aries. Okay. But I have hella action happening in my spiritual 12th house. Okay. But it might be coming a little more aggressively, because it's in Aries. You know what I'm saying? But does it mean that it's not, that it doesn't flow because it's Aries? Absolutely not. It could be coming in raging like a fire. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I think that sometimes people see an empty house, or they say, "Oh, well, I have Leo in the 12th house," or I have Capricorn in the 8th. Like, and they think that this means that they don't have a particular gift, but it's
Mm-mm.
also about what else is happening. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the fact that every house has a ruler. And so
Correct.
no real house is really at the core, no house is ever really empty, because that house, like you said, let's go with Leo in the 12th. Well, Leo's
Right.
ruled by the sun.
Right.
So wherever the sun is, the sun may be in the fourth house. The sun may be in a trine with the moon. The sun may be in aspect to Pluto or Neptune. And that can act, because that means those outer planets are having influence on the ruler of the 12th house.
Right.
So you're
Right.
still tapping into, because in my little handout I give out on, just assessing your chart. Here's the thing. I look at it this way. Planets are verbs. Think about how you learned basic. Thank you, SC, for the follow. Think about when you were coming up learning basic English. Verbs are action. We learned that adjectives modify nouns, and that a noun is a person, place, a thing. The
Right.
house, think about a house. What would you consider a house in English? A noun. So the
Right.
houses are nouns, okay? They are fixed places. The planets are verbs. And the signs are like adverbs, because they modify the verb. I think I said adverb, I meant adverb.
Right.
And so the sign is going to modify the planet's action, but the house, this is my house, damn it. My house, my
Right.
rules. So whatever comes through a water house still has to adhere to the fact that it's in water. Regardless
Yes.
if it's Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, it still is moving through water,
Thank you
you
so
know.
much. Um, what I would like to add to that too, because a lot of people pay attention to, and you touched on it. You said, "What if your son is in the 4th house?" And I feel like I do Placidus. So it's not whole houses, right? But like, my son is in the 12th house, right? So these things, I feel like when your sun, I don't care what sign you are or what rising sign you are, when your sun is in the 12th house,
Oh,
it's saying that you have wisdom that you have to impart here. And part of what you've come to do is to discover what that is, because your soul contract, you don't remember, right? So you come through having to figure out quick, fast, in a hurry what it is you're supposed to be imparting. Um,
come on.
because that's like yourself, right? The sun. So now, like my whole life, it's like the saying, my whole life I had a fight. It's like having something stuck in your throat. Let me clear my throat, but you don't know what the hell it is because it's hidden in the 12th house, and you got to figure that shit out. But that's your soul's purpose. And if you're like me and you have it there with a stellium, child, it's gonna be something.
Okay, can I?
So
Oh, my
yeah, go
fault.
ahead.
Go ahead. Go
Please
go go
do.
go
Please
go.
do. No, no, please do.
No, finish your thought. Then I'm gonna go.
Yeah, so the sun being in the 12th house in itself, I don't care if that shit is by itself. It's telling you that you have a spiritual gift that you need to work with, and you might have a little time trying to figure out what it is. That was what I was going to say.
I want to add to that, and this is gonna be real simple. The sun, if the sun is in the 12th, or it's the ruler of the 12th, so that means sun in the 12th, or got Leo in the 12th house, which we were talking
Right, we were
about.
just alluding to, yeah.
You got something for the world to see, because the sun is our chief luminary in our solar system. Okay, that's what the whole thing is named after: solar system, the sun.
Right.
So if it's in the 12th, you got something for the world to see. You may have also artistic gifts. Now, and I've
Right.
seen this. So one thing, let me just real quick segue, because I got to tell everybody, look, everybody needs to, back in the day, you have a family Bible and all that. Let me show you what the new family Bible needs to be, in my humble estimate. Something I'm proud of as starting this with my family. This is the new family Bible. All of
Okay.
these. You need to have people's charts, and you want to look at when people get sick. You want to figure out when people get married, when children go through pivotal points in life, because you can study your own lineage and you can understand gifts that are running through your lineage. You can figure out how to parent your children. I'm talking,
Indeed.
this shit don't mean nothing if you can't make it practical. You feel me?
Yes.
Just talking about it theoretically, this is how you make your magic practical. And you look at your own chart. So if you, it's cause I got two charts in here. I got my niece, I got my youngest daughter, and my cousin, son in the 12th house, all crazy, creative, artistic. And guess what? Here's some of the downside. When your son is in the 12th house, you may feel overlooked sometimes.
Absolutely.
That might be one of your greatest struggles, because the sun is trying to shine in water. You see what I'm saying? That's why the house never loses its significance. You want to know what house you're in, because the house rules set the stage. So your challenge is to not lose your confidence by feeling overlooked. Because goddamn it, you got something for the world to see.
I also think that house, other people will take credit for
Oh,
what you've done,
yes.
okay? Because it's also the house of hidden enemies.
Yep.
And part of what you come here with the 12th house sun, maybe me a little more swiftly because it's Aries that's there, right? But you learn how to defend yourself, okay? And that's part of it, or else you ain't gonna make it far with a 12th house sun, because you are gonna have enemies, okay? Some of it is gonna be rightfully so, because in your journey of trying to figure out what your purpose is, you're gonna step on some toes. because it's the house of hidden things. And maybe I feel that more so because of Aries being so aggressive, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like I think that's for everybody though, you know, in a sense. If you
Yeah.
have that 12th house sun, that there's this element of like people coming for you, and you may not, like you said, you feeling overlooked and may not understand why they coming for you because you're a 12th house sun. That's why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe they see something that you don't see.
That goes back to the video that I did the other day and said people aligning themselves with you solely because of the gift you ignored,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
can't see it,
Yeah.
but they could see it,
Yeah.
or they could feel it in the vibration because it's 12th house. So even though it may not be topical, everybody can feel the vibration.
Because the 12th is
Oh,
also potential.
and
Because
like you said, it gets thicker, right? As the water climbs, right?
that's
So it's
right.
like when you walk into a room and you feel the energy thick as hell, even though you don't know what's happening, and these people was just arguing before you walked in the room. That's 12th house shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you want to roll down through these plans?
Do
So
it.
okay,
Do
you
it.
you you okay, so you lead it off moon. What if your
So
moon is in the 12th or the ruler of the 12th house? How you see that?
so if you have the Cancer in the 12th house,
Hmm.
or you have your moon in the 12th house, um you're going to have a heavy influence by full moon energy. That's to start with. If you're a
Okay.
feminine,
Hmm.
if you're a feminine, I could tell you right now, you might have a lot of medical things that have to do with like endometriosis and fibrosis and all that, because there's going to be a lot that's happening in the feminine energy, that could be hidden from you, and that could be stored trauma from even past
Mm.
lives, um, or lineage. Beyond that, these are people that are going to get downloads that are related to water. Okay. So this might be, and you know, I don't have that, but the majority of my downloads, I'm in the shower or water is running. Okay. Um, because there's that influence, but the moon rules the tide of the water. So there's going to be a connection to that. Okay. I also feel like you might be more of a night person. Your gift may come stronger at certain astrological transits than others, that they become more highlighted with the transit of the moon or Lilith. These are things that are going to be highlighted in that way. I also think that Cancer being the mother, the tongue is powerful in spell writing. Okay, so Cancer, or 12th house moon, you got to be careful what you think or speak, because that shit really could happen. Okay, but yeah, I'll go to you for what you think the moon is there.
Damn, you go off your got do off the top of your head. That's like um you pretty much covered, because my things I would say intuitiveness, because you have a water, it's not really a planet, but yeah, we're just gonna say planet for everything. It's a water planet in a water house. So there's this ability to access, like you said, through the water, through your emotion. There is an innate sense of subconscious power that you had the ability to activate. And there's a great ability to grow and nurture things too.
Yeah,
And that can be to grow a spirit. It can also can be to grow money, to grow tangible things. Because Cancer and the moon, they rule over the breast and the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about the ability to feed and to receive sustenance. So that can be to receive downloads, which would be the manna. The manna is you receiving the download, and in the ability to grow and nurture people through spiritual intuitiveness, you know. Now, but I want to look at some of the potential difficulties. You're
Yes.
the same thing. It's a direct opposite, a mirror of what the gifts it is. It's the moon. So moods swinging and
Yes.
getting caught up in the movement of the tides and never feeling like you're able to achieve balance. You know, I'm up today, I'm down tomorrow. You know, you can be susceptible to depression. You know, you can be susceptible to injuring yourself or your health through your emotions, just like if the moon rules the first house, you know.
Let me just answer a question real quick. We're
Mhm.
talking about placements in the 12th house. So if your moon is in the 12th house, or someone wrote in the 11th, 12th house, basically the same thing. Okay, there might be slight differences, but we're going to go through the planets in the 12th house. We may not answer individual questions because there's so much information to cover, but yes, we're going to touch on each of the planets in the 12th house. Continue. Sorry.
No, you good. I mean, that was the gist of it. Being able to, I think emotional intelligence is very important with the moon in your 12th or ruling your 12th, to be able to go into your emotions and to gain understanding of why, instead of just being swayed by the movement, understand why I feel this way. Because the ability to integrate those potential negatives gives you greater access to your innate power.
Yeah, I would add to that Cancer, or the moon energy in the 12th house, is it can very much, because the moon is how you feel. Okay, how you feel. So you may feel like you're on the outside, or you're an outsider, you're in a bubble by yourself, or no one understands you, or no one understands your sadness, right? And if you don't find a way to transmute that, that's going to be the unhealthy version of uh the moon in the 12th house. So that was all I was going to add.
I agree. Okay, Mercury, the messenger.
So I have Mercury in the 12th. Um and that's definitely talking to spirit.
Yeah, you describe
You
it all
talking
the
to
time.
spirit.
Yeah.
Like you know, people probably find it so strange when they first meet me, and maybe you experienced that, even though you got to see my chart and understood why, because it's like my first relationship is with spirit. So I constantly am like, oh well, spirit told me to do this. Like anybody else would be like, right? But that, if you understand that Mercury's in my 12th house, then you can understand that that conversation is happening with spirit, probably before it happens with others. So
Hmm.
I'm already in communion with spirit. Like when we first went on, before you guys came in, I was telling him like, oh, I got a message from spirit for us like 6 o'clock this morning. Like that's because it's going to be, as soon as I open my eyes, the most important conversation begins.
Which is, I'm sorry to go back, but you just made me think about something when you said message. Another thing with the moon is messages coming through dreams.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, I
Yes.
digress. I just wanted to make sure I go
I
back
think
and,
that Mercury and the moon, they share that.
yeah, and Pluto and Neptune too. I think too. You know those
Yes.
dreams.
Yes. Um and I dare say Venus as well, because she's exalted in the 12th house.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
right. So this is all, and I have that too, right? So this is like this trine of a conversation that is happening with spirit. Right. Um, so, but yes, I feel like the negative of Mercury being in the 12th house is to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Okay, meaning you have to make sure, going back to the analogy we were, the theme of today's show happened to be the hangman. Are you looking at the situation from the proper perspective? Because the 12th house can have you doing some illusionary shit.
No, there. Now you okay.
So
Okay.
you got to check in and make sure.
Right. Right.
Okay, so you better be sure you're talking to spirit.
I
Okay, because you feel me.
yeah.
Okay, yes, go.
Well, I want to give everybody a easy trick to, because I remember when I first started getting into astrology, sometimes things like this, oh, I gotta refresh. What's this? Drag the puzzle
Yeah, drag
piece.
the puzzle piece. If they make you verify that you're still, people was putting TikTok and sleep. They would sleep. So now we have to
Okay.
verify our live after a certain amount of time.
Okay. Um, Here's a trick or a quick way to make this more easier to understand. 12th house, each planet we give you, imagine it being in Pisces. So
Mhm.
imagine Mercury being in Pisces, which is it is in detriment in Pisces. So Lovely described how you can take that planet in detriment and how it can actually be magical and powerful because it's in communication with spirit. It's getting things, downloads that shouldn't each I shouldn't know these things, okay?
Correct.
But the potential difficulty with Mercury in this space is confusion, you know, because Pisces fuses things. Mercury in 12th house, your mind is fused with spirit or the divine. Okay. And another thing is that you may feel misunderstood when you got Mercury
Absolutely.
in the 12th house. You know, you
Absolutely.
feel like people not understanding what I'm saying. They're not hearing me, you know. So those are some of the I just want to add in just to piggyback some potential challenges with. Um, and look, can we? This is an organic show. We are real people. So peeing is a real thing. Y'all understand me?
Yeah, do
So
that. Go ahead.
let me make sure I take all my headphones off so I don't be in there
Yeah, you do
on
that. You
on
do
the
that.
speaker. All right, I'll be right
And
back.
I will talk to them for a second. So while we're waiting for 720 to come back, can we get everybody to make sure they're following our channels and give us a like, share this for others, because this is good information that a lot of times people use astrology. Thank you so much for the roses, Maine. They use the astrology for things that aren't as important. I'm not saying that you don't want to know, what your boyfriend, girlfriend's astrology for the day is, but it's more useful to understand it as a roadmap to understanding yourself and how you can better align yourself with your purpose. Okay, so if you guys are into that type of content where you're going to learn how to not only use your chart, because we're not only going to be delving each time into astrology, but the tarot, numerology, then these are conversations that you're going to want to be a part of, okay, when we're looking at the masculine and the feminine perspective. So make sure you're following each of us, and look out for more. Okay, I was just telling them that that we like to concentrate on all things spiritual and astrology based, and how you can use them for your betterment, instead of like, oh, what's my boyfriend's horoscope for the day.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we talking about personal empowerment.
Yes.
And shout out to all the people tuning in. We got about 3,000 likes so far, so
Beautiful,
please keep them
beautiful.
coming. We
Yes.
appreciate y'all.
Yes,
Um,
we absolutely do.
please keep sharing, and tapping that screen. So, okay. Let me see. Am I still? Can I hear myself? All right. All right. So, Venus.
Let me tell you, I got Venus there. And I'm gonna give you both the positive and the negative of that.
Okay.
Okay, because Venus in the 12th is exalted,
Mm-hmm.
but depends on the sign you got it. And I got it in Aries, so it's in its detriment, right? So it's a mixed bag for me all day, right? It's a mixed bag for me, right?
Oh man. I love you,
Also,
but I hate you.
right? There's that, right? And then there's also the romanticization. And just like I said before with the moon and the Mercury, and you got to be sure you're having the right conversation in your relationships. With Venus in the 12th, you better not be over romanticizing shit. You're going to get your ass handed to you, because that's the 12th house, hidden enemies or hidden things. And let's not confuse that the 7th house, which I know is a little off track for a second, but the 7th house, which is relationships, also talks about hidden enemies, right? So not all your partners are here to love on you and be your boo thing. Some of them come here to straighten your ass out from some past karma that you got going on, or some things that you need to discover with yourself. So a lot of that Venus in the 12th, you're going to go through some things. Okay. Now, on another aspect, in the positive way, I feel like Venus allows you in the 12th, allows you to communicate a sense of love that is not just maybe spoken, but felt like on another level. Because when you get to all the 12th house, you have experienced all the aspects, right? So when Venus gets there, her love is deep, right? Her love is not just surface, right? That's sustainable. You think of Earth and you think like, okay, Earth, what's more solid than that? But Earth is only like maybe a quarter of the planet, and the rest is water, right? And how deep that we don't even have a way to go down to the bottoms or the depths of, right? So that's the other aspect. And then also that Venus and that psychic water, it's like it kind of makes me think of and I think we talked about this story before about Libra and the Persephone, and the love of like the mother. You think of Venus in a way as being like the divine's favorite. You know what I'm saying? So it gives this depth of emotion. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Wow. I want to add something too, especially for somebody like you, as you've already shared about your chart. And I don't know if I got one out here in my little Kabbalah thing, but if you got Venus and Mercury in your 12th house, that is a natural gift for manifestation, because Mercury is the spoken word, and Venus is the union that activates the magic of the word. On the tree of life, Hod is 8, and Venus as Netzik is 7. So Hod is Mercury, and Mercury is the reason, and Venus is the love side. And when you can marry those two, that is prime energy for manifestation. Venus is very powerful in the 12th because she's a super magnet. She has the power of spiritual attraction. There's something beyond this realm in her ability to attract. She is, because Venus is copper, she's a conduit of spirit in the 12th house. Venus in the 12th also can have artistic gifts because Venus is beauty, you know. So there's some type of way that it can be this mystical conveyance of beauty through being in the 12th. Again, a reminder that, as Lovely said, Venus is exalted in Pisces. So she picks up some of that exaltation by accident, by her just being in the 12th house, even if she's in detriment by sign, you know. And to add to some of the potential challenges, it's like that what's the song with Jay-Z and Beyonce, Crazy in Love?
Yes.
Got me so crazy in love. You know, you might experience that because it's just like if a person is Virgo rising and they have Pisces in the 7th house, they may tend to lose themselves in relationship. But you know, so the 7th house is naturally ruled by who? Venus. And so you see the connection between Venus and Pisces. You can have the same thing with Venus in the 12th house because she's still in contact with that Piscean energy. And because she's so driven by romance and loving for, see, Venus in Pisces is, like Lovely said, is loving not just the expression of love, she loves the institution of love when she's in Pisces. And so that can lead her to lose herself. So that's part of that mitigating challenge with her in that area, is how to maintain a sense of self and direction and not get, you know. So that's my little 2 cents on her there. And
You actually, when you said that, actually made me think about something else too that we might overlook about the Venus in the 12th house connection. And like you said, her being exalted there because of the Pisces thing. But when you look at the tarot would give a different explanation, right? Because Venus is associated in the tarot, right, with the Empress, right? So, and we're going to talk about 2 things with that. The Empress is all 4 queens put together. Okay, so she has all the aspects. Okay, so it's what makes her the Empress, is that she embodies all of those qualities. But what is difference between the Empress and the Magician, who are the 2 strong manifestors in the deck? Because when you talk about the 12th house of manifestation, this is what it made me think of, right? The Magician, and I teach this in my tarot course, the Magician has all 4 tools to learn how to manifest. He has a sword, he has a coin, he has a cup, right? And he has, why am I drawing a blank right now? Coin, cup, and the sword, right? So he has all 4 things, right? The Empress needs none of that. She needs none of that, okay? She just thinks it, blinks her eyes, and it's there, right? So it also reminds me, and I use this in my example, it reminds me of and it was Sinead O'Connor who sang it, but it was Prince who wrote it. Okay, nothing compares to you. And she says in the words, all the flowers in the garden died when you went away. That's some Empress shit. Okay, because she is the birther. So in the 12th house, she is the completion of the cycle of love, of what she has birthed, of what she wants to bring to fruition, of why, of the depth, of how strong her conviction is, of all that she has experienced to give of herself. So there's a connection there to the Empress. With the Venus in the 12th house. And that is why it's so closely linked to the manifestation gift, what you said about the Mercury and the Venus. So that was the only thing I wanted to add.
Good point. Good points. Plural. Okay. Well, I think you covered Venus.
Okay.
All right. Mars. Well, we're hitting you back to back.
I think so, because even though I don't have Mars in
It's
the
the
12th
ruler.
house, I have Aries, right?
Yeah, it's the ruler.
There. And I'll talk about some of the positives first. And I feel like Aries in the 12th house or Mars in the 12th house is saying, what are you willing to fight for that might not be on the surface?
That's
Okay.
what's first thing. That's right.
Okay. So like people might not know, like you could be like real quiet. You could be the nerd and you know, and they say something about your mama and you whoop on that ass. That's some Aries stuff right there. Okay. Because they didn't know
Right.
you was about that life. It was in the 12th house, right? It was hidden. You smiling all the time, right? And they didn't know that you came with that vibration. Okay. So you got warrior spirit for those things that you have deep conviction that you might hold close to the vest. Okay. You also have to be careful of the enemies because and I'll say that applies to Venus as well. Back to that real quick, because Venus in the 12th is an inherent beauty, right? So she's going to have hidden enemies based that she might not even know because she's attractive or she has a gift or something. So they're going to hate her, right? Now with Mars, it's kind of the same thing, right? There may be people who will not confront you because they feel your vibration of war. But they are hidden enemies and they are just equally as deadly. So you have to be, when you have Mars or the Aries frequency, you gotta know that there's people who want to take your spot for sure. Yeah, I'll say that.
I feel that. I think that was the first thing I had was this innate ability to fight, this fighting spirit. There's also this ability to access emotion. And although it's fire, which I equate this to a steam engine, because back in the beginning of the industrial era where the steam engine was in vogue, you're using the power of heating up water to provide energy. And so Mars can cause boiling water. And so that can be an ability to access this emotion and then to act upon it. And to then Mars either ruling or in the 12th house to identify with the emotion, which that can be good and bad. Another thing can be, given that we're talking about the space of hidden enemies, we may also be fighting a ghost.
Yes.
And it might not really be, it could be a hidden enemy, or it could be my perception is something. I got to fight something. My mama has Mars in the 12th house. And my mama's ready to, what they call a dirty red growing up. My mama liked to fight, you know, so it can be, and she's having to learn now how to live because she's had to fight all her life. And it's like, well, mama, and I think she finds herself getting depressed sometimes because she's having to learn how to live for the sake of living and not to fight, not in survival mode,
Right.
you know. And so conquering that, because the hidden enemy is not always just another person. The most challenging hidden enemy is myself,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know.
I would also say that that when you were talking about your mom and like the fighting frequency, that Aries or Mars in the 12th house, and I'm going to speak from Reiki for a second, means that there's a fire in your solar plexus.
Mm,
Okay, that's the generator.
hmm.
Okay, so it gives you the purpose or the reason for self, for what you identify or how you show yourself, like in a way. Because even though it may not be your sun sign that's there, it's Aries. So you are
Hmm.
expressing the self. Also, in your relationships, you may be, very much in love and still be like, but there's a line here. There's a division, and I'm not afraid, Aries or Mars, to say that this area is not for you. This is for me, or this is for me in spirit. Yeah, there can be boundaries with that Aries that they'll want to protect or fight for that space to be their own.
Hmm. Um, one more thing I would add too, and this is thinking about again, if we use the model of 12th house as Pisces,
Mm-hmm.
Mars does not particularly like to be in Pisces
Yep.
because Mars is, if you just look at the glyph of Mars, if you go to your downtown, most of us gonna have some type of fountain. If you look
Mm-hmm.
at Mars, it's a line come up and it splits. And so one, that's like the ram horns, but it's also like water coming up out of a fountain, you know. Now, when it's in that pool, that's Pisces, because there's nothing differentiating one droplet of water from the other. But whatever shoots up out of that pool is what we focus on. When we have a fountain, we ain't even looking at the rest of the pool. We look at the water shooting out. That's Mars. And so Mars wants direction. It wants to be seen. And when it's in that space, we have to guard against wasting our energy because Pisces is mutable and there can be frustration. And because it is, Mars is going, it's Mars is not known for patience, and it wants to, I'm trying to get some shit done, and I feel like I'm trying to overcome this because I'm in a space where ain't none of these other motherfuckers trying to get nothing done. Let's go, you know. So I want to add that can be another thing with my mom used to tell me I'm impatient. I'm like, Mom, you the most impatient person in the Western Hemisphere,
Well,
you
I was
know.
going to add to that, that the Aries or the Mars thing being in that house, and you saying like, the mutable energy feeling like it fluctuates, right? And you were saying how she has to now learn how not to be in fight mode, which I could truly relate to because my mother, they used to call her once a week from school, like, come get your daughter. She was in a fight, right? So, so you know what I'm saying? When you put that later, what it is that we have to learn how to use the fire or the solar plexus or that Aries energy without having to take heads, because it always felt like that's what you had to do. So once that that push-pull, or back to the tug-of-war analogy, is removed, then how do you light the solar plexus? So there's a thing there about that.
Yo, this is good stuff. Let's see. Are y'all enjoying this? I hope so.
Yeah, I hope you guys are loving this.
Okay. Jupiter in the 12th house.
So I would say that Jupiter in the 12th house could be dreams coming true, but they
Right.
also could be like something that you manifested, when you was a child. You could just one day, by accident trip on that shit and be like, you know what, if I go back into my journal in the 12th grade, I actually wrote this. And you would be surprised, right? Because you might not have actively been trying to bring that about per se. Okay, because it's the house of the hidden or the unknown, right? But it also can feel like redirection for protection. So meaning that you might not get something, or let's say, you went to the store. I'm going to give an example. You go to the store and they didn't have something that you wanted, right? On your way out, there was 8 people online, right? You're like, damn, I'm glad they didn't have this shit, because I would have been on that long ass line, right? And you leave out, right? And then you get home, you go to another store, you get home, and you go to another store and you turn on the TV and they say, oh, well, that store you was just at, yeah, they got robbed, like right after you left, right? So the gift there was that you were removed, in essence, right? You get lucky things that don't make sense, right? Or you just miss events, or this is like, you don't know why you met the guy at Starbucks, but then next month he gives you a job. Like these are things, right, that you may not know why. Conversely, on the reverse side of that, that guy ghosted you, right? Or something like that. But then 3 weeks later, he's on the news. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's this thing of you don't know why, but Jupiter is helping you out.
Yes. Hidden mercy.
Yes.
In the Kabbalah, the tree of life, Jupiter rules the pillar of mercy. Hesed. Hidden gifts, as you said. Also this expansive access to the subconscious. Because in traditional astrology, Jupiter rules Pisces. So Jupiter is in very comfortable. Jupiter is actually in its feminine nature in the 12th house. Jupiter is in his masculine expression in the 9th. So when Jupiter's in the 12th, it is expansive gifts based on feminine, inner, intuitive things, intuitive gifts. And it's also a gift to be naturally generous. When Jupiter's in the 12th house, these people tend to be naturally have a degree of generosity. And we typically don't think of generosity as being a gift, but the gift is that it sets you up for reciprocity.
Yes. Yes. I also feel like your generosity that you may be extending over here, the universe may find a way to mirror it back at you in another place. So, short story. I used to keep a lot of change in my car, and once it would get to a big bag, I would put in a Ziploc. And when someone homeless came and asked me for something, I would just, when spirit told me that's the one, I would just give them a bag of change, probably have like 20, 30, maybe more dollars in it, right? And somebody asked me once why. And I said, because you never know when you're speaking to God.
Mm-hmm.
You don't never know in through what vessel, or the goddess or the creatrix, or right, you never know when you are being in a sense tested to see how much you are in vibration with that uh Christ-like consciousness, so that you can have it reflected back at you. And the other thing I was going to add to that is that Jupiter, right, or Sagittarius, is the temperance card in tarot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so temperance talks about patience and healing, right? That's what the temperance card is. It's also reunion, right? So in the house of Pisces, it's like having the patience to unravel those gifts also can bring you closer to spirit or expand. Okay, there could be an expansive. These are also people who could, you could tell them, I was having a problem um with my laptop, da 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 da. And then like a half an hour later, after they've been quiet, they come back and they say, so I was thinking about what you said before. And then have a whole expansive download based on that, because the
Mm-hmm.
conversation that they're having within is like so much louder.
Mm. I think it's also an affinity for natural law
Hmm.
because Jupiter is the lawgiver, or it's about justice. And that's more so its Piscean nature. But I think when it's in its feminine in Pisces, it still holds that signature. And I think the mercy that is shown with Jupiter in the 12th house is a way of reflecting natural law. That there's an innate feeling of I got so much to give. And sometimes people don't even recognize it consciously. But it's, 12th house can be, subconscious processes where
Yeah.
this there's this innate sense. I just recently did a reading with a lady with Jupiter in the 12th house, and she's lamenting over feeling like being used. And that's one of the downsides of this Jupiter placement, is being taken advantage of. Or I think she had Jupiter in Cancer in the 12th. So this this over um this overdoing the motherly energy, this caring, and I think her family was taking advantage of her, and something else. I don't know if it's some other situation where, and Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, and
Right.
Jupiter's in 12th house where it is in Piscean. So this is but she had to learn how to pull back her power, because your natural inclination, even if a planet is gifted and exalted, or in a particular area, the things can come so natural to you that you don't learn how to mitigate them. And so sometimes a square can come in, or an opposition, to force you to learn how to pull that power back and not your natural inclination not work against you.
Yeah, I would also say, like, when you said the thing about Jupiter and the law, right? And you think about Jupiter's relationship with Venus, and the law having the other house would be the justice, Libra, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other iteration of Venus, right? Um, it's like they can feel, like you said, used for their expansive quality, okay, for riding their coattails in essence,
Mm-hmm.
right? or also the random messages, so that they could be speaking out loud, like, oh, I was dreaming about X, Y, and Z. Like I saw a TV that didn't have to be plugged in, just using an example, right? And then they say that to the wrong person. That person, 12th house hidden enemy, may try to jump on that idea. Okay, so that could also be a way where they could feel like their gifts are used against them.
I have a child um who has, let's see, she has Jupiter rules her 12th, and Jupiter
Mhm.
squares her moon.
Mhm.
And so if Jupiter's in the 12th or in contact or rules the 12th and it's in contact with the moon, our emotions can tend to, we can just, things can go from 0 to 60 in the
Yep.
blink of an eye. And especially if there's a feeling like something wasn't fair, because Jupiter is about fairness too. And there can be a thing of, I had to, because she's a Sagittarius, so her sun is in Sagittarius in the 12th. So Jupiter rules the 12th, but it's in the 11th. And we
Mhm.
just talked about how when someone has a sun in the 12th, they can be overlooked. My two youngest go to Taekwondo. They give, we go Friday night, they give my son what they call a tiger ticket. It's like saying, oh, you did a good job. They overlooked them more. Saturday morning we go. Henry gets another tiger ticket. They overlook him more. So I said, okay, I gotta go and talk to one of these. And luckily it was a young girl that I actually have rapport with. I said, hey, I don't want to be the helicopter parent, but my son is getting these tiger tickets, and my daughter, so I don't want her to have this complex of men are more proficient. Because I'm like, this girl is dangerous. Like she kicks
Right.
with such force, and she got so much fire in her. You know, if anything, to be honest, as a parent, she's actually better. She's more coordinated. How are y'all keep giving him a tiger ticket and not, so, and I also know that she has her 12th house ruler, Jupiter, square her sun. And I don't want her to feel unfairly treated, because if she got upset in this instance, she got a fucking right to be upset,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So, you know, it's funny how these archetypes, they really do play out in real life. And so I just want to get that example of just, both combining the sun in the 12th and the Jupiter. We can have issues of things not being fair, you know but
So we have ethereal here. And ethereal, I know plenty, but listen, reach out to 720 and get your chart read. We all have our separate gifts, and that happens to be his. Um, I would say, in regards to what you said about the Jupiter being, or the 12th house sun being opposed the moon, is kind of like the same energy as having Jupiter there. And yes, that is true, because with that 12th house and then having the moon oppose that would be like what, the 6th house or something, right? This could lead to you having to do things even though emotionally it can hurt you, as the moon, right? And knowing like, well, it sucks, but Pisces house, or the 12th house, is a house of wisdom, right? So
mhm.
not all the time shit is going to be liked. And sometimes you can't or won't, for whatever reason, reveal why you've come to a certain position, and yet still have to carry that out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not always the explosion of the emotion of the moon being opposite, but it's also because I know, because I have the moon in the 6th house opposed my 12th house sun, right? So it's like that feeling of like sometimes I don't explain why I made a decision the way that I did, right? And I could be protecting somebody, or maybe it's just that I don't feel it's worthy of explaining. So it can work in the opposite way, is my point too. There could be secretism as to motivations.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Saturn.
Oh. So Saturn, to me, and we had this conversation in regards to the North Node, and I said the North Node is like one of the most important things in your chart, and people don't talk about it enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Saturn is also like probably second on that list, okay? That people don't pay attention to the importance of their Saturn placement,
Mm-hmm.
because this is the things that you have to face or deal with to succeed in whatever area. Okay. I like to refer to Saturn as the stepfather and Jupiter as Zaddy. Okay. So Zaddy's like, I got gifts I want to drop off, right? And your stepfather's like, but did you do your chores? Okay, so wherever Saturn is where the work needs to be done. So when it's in the 12th house, this is going to be about shit you don't see about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
things that you don't understand, things that maybe would rock your perception of self. So you avoid that, right? But it can also be how you imprison yourself because you're not looking in the places that need to be addressed. And you can say, why I never get ahead? Well, because you're not doing the work. And that's what Saturn's going to tell you in the 12th house. Well, did you do the work yet? And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's in any house that Saturn is, but even more so in the 12th, because you're not going to have a full understanding of why. You may feel as above, so below, like why I'm always got beef with other people, why people always, like I have strife having people understand what I'm trying to achieve, or why nobody helps me. Well, because you're not understanding something about you and your vibration and how you come off, and once you accept the areas that you need to work on, that you hide from yourself, then it's almost like Saturn gives you a boost, because it has and that's going to happen after your Saturn return. Hopefully you learned it in the first go round of getting your ass handed to you, so that you could so you can not experience it again for your second Saturn return. But yeah, there's this energy of Saturn being in the 12th, what you're refusing to see. This also can be reflected of what people are really trying to hide, like let's say a secret adoption. They didn't want to tell you you were adopted, and you may be trying to get information about that, and they're stubbornly not wanting to give, even though you may have some pieces. There could be things that are outside of your reach, and that could be part of well, I have to make peace with, I might not never know that answer. Am I going to let that blockage shut me down or imprison me? But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think um, analyzing the times we're in right now is a great um, way to understand Saturn in the 12th, because Saturn right now is in Pisces.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I see it's a question. Did we miss? It said Rose
Yes.
as.
She says, I love that. Wait, so is the 12th house where you mainly discover your spiritual gifts?
It can be a main storehouse, but no, not all. Not all. Your spiritual gifts, there's so many facets to it. It is trines and sextiles in your chart can open up gifts. Squares, oppositions, square and a half,
Heliums.
stelliums, house placement, stellium by house placement, trine sextiles by house placement. Uh, so it's a myriad of things. We're just taking astrology is so vast that you got to break it up into segments. And I think so. Our goal is to mainly look at the 12th. Why? Because the 12th is, in my personal opinion, is maybe the hardest house to just understand because it is not meant to be understood through linear processes. So you have to really that's why we're bouncing off each other because there's so many layers to the 12th. It's where everything has been fused, you know. All 11 signs come through the 12th to be fused. It definitely is not the only place, but it is an important place to that's to look at.
And I would add, when you mentioned Saturn being in Pisces right now, I'd like to address that for a moment, because when you look at, and I spoke to this about a year ago on my channel, and we've been talking about it for a minute. We are having like a spiritual rebirth right now. Okay. And people are delving into spirituality. Saturn being there is also having people question their beliefs as far as spirituality. So you have both that aspect, right? And Saturn can also speak about the limitations
Yes.
of
Yes.
where you are and
Yes.
what you're willing to accept. And so giving an example, I see a lot of people online, and we already touched on, everybody has their gifts, right? This is your birthright, but it does not mean that you have the right to insist upon membership of systems that are not like ATRs, that are like closed practices, right? You have, right now we have a whole thing online of people saying, well, spirituality is okay, however certain veins, it's like appropriating other people's paths, right? There's a touch of that as well. Saturn can represent the limitations of what we should be doing. Or like, for another thing, let's say you are watching TikTok and you see, oh, if I put this together and this together, I will bring this person back to me, because they say that this will bring my ex, right? And then what you didn't know was the consequences of the frequency of that shit, because your ass don't have the training, right? So now what you didn't understand is that it brought them back to you. And I'm gonna give this one a sidebar for all of y'all real quick. Okay, so you brought this person back. Sure enough, they all over your house and shit. But now every time you see their nostrils moving, you are so deeply annoyed. Okay, because your soul is in sure knowledge of the fact that they're not necessarily there by choice. So everything that's happening, you're seeing it through a different lens. And right, you force this person to come back. So now they may be enamored with you, but you disgusted by their presence. Now you can't get rid of them. Or they're like so aggressively onto you that you can't go take a piss by yourself. Okay, so these are the backfirings of you not understanding the spiritual power and you delving into things that there was a limitation that was put there for a reason.
That's real shit. That's real. And that's real spill. That's real spill.
I
Um,
say to my clients that if you're going to manifest a partner, manifest the attributes
that we
of the person you want. But when you put Joe Schmo's name in there, you get what you asked for. Don't come over here complaining about that shit. I tell people do not put names because you might want JoJo from high school and you was about to get your Idris Elba. Now you just shitted over the manifestation that spirit was about to give you. But that's me.
and 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 I want to add to that that Saturn, although we think of Saturn mostly as the taskmaster and the rigidity, Saturn is very magical because anything, when we say the word, I have a goal, the word goal actually means jail. Jail, as in Jail, come from the same root as goal. When you have a goal, you're looking to confine something.
Mm-hmm.
And when Saturn is in Pisces, while it can produce fear, that's a big thing. We see a lot of that being promoted right now. It's fear, 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 fear. The flip side is that Saturn can be an agent of manifestation in the 12th house because Saturn is about putting boundaries around things.
Mm-hmm.
And boundaries are not always bad. Just like Lovely said, you need to understand the boundaries of your spiritual practices. Some shit you better know what you're doing before you fuck with. You know, boundaries are necessary. Our bodies, our skin is ruled by Saturn, our bones, Saturn, our muscles, Saturn, because it sets necessary boundaries, which allows each vessel to be able to carry out its duties. And if you don't have boundaries, then we just a hodgepodge of just gelatinous mush down here. And so Saturn says, in the dreamy realm of the 12th house or Pisces, which is, you know, the ability to imagine, to envision, to see something. If you can figure out how to tap into that Saturn there, you can form and bring shit into reality.
Yes, and you know, while you were speaking, they gave me a image. So they gave me the Kill Bill. For those of you who've seen Kill Bill, okay. And remember in the movie, she gets dropped off to the I guess he was like her teacher, the Asian gentleman. She gets dropped off to her house, to his house, and he's working her out. Like he's not even speaking to her. He's just telling her this is what she got to do, and she's like going through suffering every day, like her whole time there. But what she was really doing was learning. What she was really doing was being sharpened, right? And Saturn, back to the Aquarius, you know, connection. You know what I'm saying? So preparing from a different perspective, right? So what you might envision as punishment is refinement. But yeah.
I'm living through that right now. So I'm gonna tell a little bit about. I have my ascendant is 15 degrees of Sagittarius.
Okay.
Saturn is currently sitting around 14, 15 degrees of Pisces,
Mm.
squaring my ascendant. So, what does Saturn deal with? Well, for one, your time. And you know, when you're telling me I need to watch the third body problem, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna try. You know, I've got one episode, and like I don't know when I'm gonna get a chance to watch a second one.
Right.
You know, and because I got young children, it ain't nothing I can sit down and watch with them. And so Saturn has been whooping my ass as far as responsibility, you know, and juggling this and still trying to find time to post a video, to edit the video, to you know, and um but it's squaring my ascendant. And it's just, and I just, when you said that, it really made me, the refining of self is what I'm in right now. And and I'm knocking on 50 years old, and I'm still under construction, you know. So I had to remind myself, even as on this side of the fence, because you said something another time too, like we catch shit early, you know, which is the kind of the thing you have to do if you're going to be out here teaching and talking to people. You kind of have to get your ass whipped early because you are the crash dummy,
Yep.
you know. So yeah, that really hit home and resonated what you said there about,
I would
um,
also add to that because in 2020 or 2021 it perfected, but Saturn was over there in Aquarius at that time,
oh boy,
right?
grand cross for me.
And yeah, me too, right? Because but it was on
Ooh,
my
your
north node,
angles.
right? It was on my north node, right? And so when it hit 16 degrees, which is where my Saturn is in Taurus, AB, everything fucking imploded. But it was also about how it was to force me to come into alignment with what? With my north node. Man, Saturn was stepping on my neck and my ass at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And I'm still like, that's how I got here. You know what I'm saying? With y'all right now because of that frequency. So it's a real thing. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add to that.
Definitely. Okay, I'm sitting here drinking this damn shake. I shouldn't have. I'm gonna try to get through one more planet before I have to go and take another break. But Uranus or Uranus. Now this one hits
So
home for
for
me.
yeah, so I'll say this about because I have it opposing my 12. Okay, I have it opposing my 12. Um, for me, Uranus is changed through chaos.
Mhm.
Okay. There's a couple phrases I use to that, but did you die though? But did you die though? Like you
Mm,
asked me for X, Y, and Z, and you didn't tell me how I was gonna do it. So I did it. And but did you die though? You got what you wanted, right? There's that energy, right?
mhm,
And not only that, but you said you wanted to have your own company, but it might not have been successful the way you thought of it. So I improved upon that shit. And yeah, you went through a whole bunch of shit, but you better off now, ain't you? Right? That's your Uranus's energy, right? And then if I were to put it in a feminine energy or in an ATR energy, it's all yeah, all day. Like it's the feminine warrior. It is the thunder that accompanies the lightning bolt. Okay, it is the tornado that rips you out of your reality and takes your house right off the foundation, and you end up in the Wizard of Oz, um learning about who the grand wizard is behind the projection of what is happening. So I feel like yeah, that's how I envision the energy of Uranus, and it being in the 12th house. It's like amplified by 1,000, right? Because it's
mhm.
also hidden energies and things you don't know. And this could be accidental blessings or accidental imprisonment, right? Or a situation back to the hangman, right? Of how you're going to respond to the trauma that lives in the 12th house, and whether you allow it to change you for the better, because Uranus speaks of change no matter what, or if you have it destroy you and everything that you've built. But yeah.
Yeah, some positives to build on that. Of I'll start there with the Uranus is there's a degree of ingenuity when it's in your 12th house. You can experience these bursts of enlightenment. And it's funny you mentioned about getting downloads in the shower, or messages from spirit. Like if when I'm sweating, I uh I get a lot of things that drop in. When I'm washing dishes, I get a lot of things that Uranus gives. On the positive side, it gives things when you're not trying to force it.
Mm-hmm.
And the 12th house is not anything you can force anyway. But especially with Uranus, it's a maverick. It's rebellious. So it does not yield to Saturn's rigidity of, I'm doing this, this is my next step. So in my chart, I have Uranus square my Saturn. So
Yeah.
Uranus in the 12th house. So, and I don't say, but I had to say I got some degree of genius. Like I said, I can learn shit and I don't need nobody to actually teach me. I can overhear a conversation and my mind to start figuring out what was really meant. But the downside is I talked about my mama. I got to talk about me. I am the most impatient motherfucker in the Western Hemisphere, just about, because I'm at odds with time always. And I've always felt like I'm fighting to overcome the constraints of time. So I have to mitigate that. Uranus in the 12th house can be an unnecessary rebellious nature sometimes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Combativeness, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
When you ain't necessarily got to be combative. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that because I have Uranus opposing the 12th house and in the 6th house, right? With my moon, right? My moon
Mm,
is in the 6th, right? And it's in the house of service, right? So it's like the way I'm gonna teach, or the way that I might communicate my gifts to others or show them, like that what you were saying about the Venus and the Mercury being in the 12th house is this thing of like being able to manifest, right? And so since I teach manifestation, I might teach it in a very unorthodox way,
mm-hmm,
but yet that could be the gift. So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's the modern ruler or the modern dispositor of my sun, because my sun
Mm-hmm.
is in Aquarius
Mm-hmm.
and it squares my sun. So I have a T square in my chart. The
Mm-hmm.
sun opposes Saturn, and then when you have a T square, the squaring planet agitates the opposition. So I'm already got the sun's in opposition to Saturn. So everything for me has been late. Started playing football late. Got into everything's come late. Everybody else had CD players. I was still playing tapes, you
Right.
know. um and but I forgot even where I started with that. But oh yeah, my son. It rules my son. So I've lived my life figuring part of my challenge is figuring out this quagmire between inspiration and timeliness, of sometimes feeling like you're too early for something,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes feel like you're late, you know. Um, but it's kind of exciting that this era we're moving into of this more Aquarian energy, even given with all the negatives, the potential of, censorship, and we know everything that comes with the territory, but I feel like humanity at a greater percentage is moving into this desiring to know more?
So, what you were saying about the Uranus opposing or squaring your sun, and it's like also forcing you to kind of recognize what needs to be changed within to see
Mhm.
those things on the outside or on the exterior.
Mhm.
um and Uranus, and because you're an Aquarius, and like you said, it's your dispositor, right? Again, I swear to you, it's like today is the Hangman Day, right? Is it bad that you have that, or has it taught you how to overcome obstacles because of
Mhm.
that square, right? So a lot of times when I see, like, a lot of people will say, well, having your Venus in the 12th house is in Aries isn't great, but yet that has made me extremely strong. So some of those negatives are the positive as well. I was going to
Right.
say that.
Right. I'm a firm believer that some of the greatest people that we would label the greatest in society have had charts with a lot of difficulty, squares,
Mm,
oppositions, and some you always hear about those people when they say, "Oh, I knew people. I knew the Swintons. When I was growing up, there was a family, the McLeans and the Swintons. I've seen people more athletic than Michael Jordan. I saw them who could jump
right.
out the gym." And that can be how a trine is in your chart. It's just something that you got as a gift that you ain't really even done nothing. It's just it fell in your lap. But those squares and oppositions can sometimes provide the necessary tension to make you bring that shit out, you know.
Absolutely.
So I
Absolutely.
concur with what you're saying 10,000%.
Right.
Oh, so all right.
So I think we
You go
only
ahead.
got one planet left, right? Which
We
is
got
Pluto.
Neptune and Pluto.
Okay. All right. So which one you want to do first?
Let's go Neptune.
Okay. So Neptune. Neptune already is coming with illusion. Neptune already has this dreamy, I want to, and it can be good because you can think of things or imagine things that maybe others wouldn't have, right?
Mhm.
But you can get lost in the sauce. I mean,
Lost
that
in the
is
sauce.
Pisces. Yeah, that's Pisces ruler, right? So you could be having a whole world within yourself that you forget to actually touch the real world,
Mhm.
right? Or it can have you seeing things that are not there. Okay, or thinking you're having one conversation but you're really not, because the other people aren't recognizing that that's what you're having a conversation on, because you're only seeing what you want to see or experiencing what you want to experience. That is the illusion of Neptune in the 12th house, right? But this also means that you can see things that others can't.
That's
Like you
right.
could see their aura, maybe, or you can look at a picture of a person, which, we ain't going to get into that, but you could look at a picture of a person that you never met and be like, oh, I could tell you what kind of, childhood they had.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Because you have that gift of sight of what is unseen.
Love it. Can you keep talking?
Yes.
I'm
So
sorry.
you understand? So this could be like this could be a dual situation where, it could have you in spaces thinking you all in love. Like, he used the Beyonce Crazy in Love song, right? Meanwhile, him or her is for the streets, and you out here, you just, claiming them, right? and they for the streets, right? That's the illusionary side, or you believing in something that is not true, right? That's the illusionary side. But the flip side of that is the ability to know something or see something that is unseen that no one else can see. So that can also be the gift, right? So this could be that one Piscean friend, just for instance, who, says, I don't know, but that guy or that girl that you brought over, something's off about them. And then 3 months later, you find out that him or her was married, right? This is like an insightfulness. Okay, also Neptune can be like emotions, like tapped into the frequency of the emotion or what it feels like, but not knowing where exactly that is. Okay, so there's that energy as well. I was just explaining that there's like a dreaminess. There's a dreaminess, and you may not know where the information is coming from. It's just like a knowing, because Neptune can just, you could be like, I don't know why I know this, but I just feel like that guy or that girl that you brought, there's something off about them. And then 3 months later, they're married. Right? But you didn't know why you felt that. You just felt like something was not right. Or you could be in the illusion of like claiming something. Like I gave them the example of you out here claiming somebody and they for the streets, because you didn't see it, because you was in the you was in the illusion of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think too, Neptune is like, um if we go back to that pool analogy, you're in the pool, you are immersed in the water, and you're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable being there. Um, but you can be so comfortable that you may not realize at times you got to get out the pool and dry off and walk on dry land. You
Right.
can't live in the pool all the time. Um,
It's called drowning. We need,
called
yeah.
drowning. It's called drowning in your own water. you
Right.
know but like most, you touched on everything I wanted. That tapping into the divine mind, that's the positive. But tapping into the divine mind can also be the negative, because that's the confusion. Because how are you going to fully interpret a mind that is not meant to be interpreted? you know and that's what can bring out the confusion. But can be great spiritual and artistic gifts:
Yes.
clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, you know, because you're naturally in kinship with that energy. And I think all you touched on the potential negatives, lost in the sauce. That was the first thing I had, was lost.
Right.
Um, Disconnected. You touched on being delusional. Um, and I think even with Pluto and or Neptune, you can both be subject to depression, because they are such
Yes.
heavy, heavy energies, and they can be hard to be understood by a human mind. But that's my summary.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. Yep. Yep. I don't even think there's anything else to add to that. Um
Yeah.
but okay, so let's get into Pluto.
Oh boy.
Yeah, man. So I feel like the Pluto there, you could even feel like you remember past lives.
Mm.
Okay? Or you could live many lives in a lifetime. You reinvent yourself regularly. There's the gift of that and the curse,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that could be the duality of that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that you could feel, other people could feel like you're a chameleon, like you don't, like you switch up too much. And it could be because you're not the same thing in all places. Okay, or what you are outside of your home and what you are in your personal life can be very opposed with that placement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this also could be a loss of losing my religion. Okay, like a disbelief because of an event, or a loss, a tragic loss or a trauma, or vice versa, coming to religion because of some type of trauma or experience. Yeah, I also feel like Pluto gives me the energy of the chrysalis, of the
Mm-hmm.
state in between the death and the rebirth, right? And it being in that 12th house, water house, of having to delve in the water to create the rebirth. And because the 12th house is always like what you've hidden from yourself or what you don't understand about yourself, you could be there a minute. This gives me like late bloomer vibes.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because you could be there a minute before you get a chance to really come up and have an understanding of what Pluto's a very outer planet, and then the 12th house is outer energy, like it's later, right? So the two of them, that feels like some heavy wisdom shit is gonna happen there.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot of similarities between Neptune and Pluto. I think they both can give you um, access to a rich dream life.
Hmm.
Um, but I think Pluto gives you a richer inner world, um, because of it being um, the Lord of the underworld. When you combine the inner earth with the pool, I think that might be the most psychically charged or intuitive maybe placement, because you combining those two. This, like you said, is the energy is so far out, and you combining the complementary elements of the earth infusion with the water. This, a natural proclivity towards the occult, natural things hidden. um I also think too, with Pluto on the 12th or in the 12th or ruling the 12th, there may be the discovery of a type of will that is buried or hidden. Like I think Pluto, if you look at the glyph of Pluto and the glyph of the sun, they are really pointing to the same thing. It's
Right.
just that the sun, we look at the outer ring, what we see, but it's the core of the sun which is really the driving force. And that glyph of Pluto, with birthing that seed out of the ark, out of the mother, Pluto is really giving birth to what is inside of the sun.
So it's crazy that you say that, because while you were talking about how Pluto is like one of the symbols most of being in touch basically with your spirituality, what came to my mind as you said that was that I would I would say the 12th house sun and the Pluto would be the strongest influences of that, right? Or the way that they show up, right? And then when I thought that, what did spirit say? The alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end,
Yeah.
right? The sun is the center and the Pluto's the furthest out, right? So
Hmm.
it's the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end. And yeah, it's full
Hmm.
circle. And also 12th house is the full circle,
Right.
right? So it's the conclusion and the preparation of the new beginning, because it's cyclical.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's what I heard when you were saying that.
I feel that. I agree. I think on a potentially negative is the Scorpio influence can be paranoia, of always being aware that there's are looking for this hidden enemy, and another one can be compulsion. because Pluto can be very compulsive and getting caught in our desires, um, and maybe it being at a low vibrational um, affinity. Just from if we're talking about the negative potential negative expressions.
Yes. I would also say the cynicism.
Yes.
Right. So Pluto can represent the cynicism, or like I said before, losing my religion, of situation happening and all of a sudden you're in disbelief, or no longer value or believe in the things that you originally believe in. So yes, that could be the negative aspect, like somebody being, let's say, very religious, and then they lose a child, right? They lose a child, and then they're like, they couldn't possibly be a god because God wouldn't, right? So this is that opposing energy, or the cynicism with belief. So
very true. I've seen that show up in charts. Something
I've
happened
seen it
in
real
life.
life. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think this has been a fantastic conversation.
Absolutely.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say in conclusion, or?
I have one thing to say, but I think it's a little off topic, and some of our viewers, probably cross viewers, are gonna get off of here and then want to go see what I'm talking about. But you had put up a video last week, I think, and it was talking about raccoons.
Oh yeah.
Y'all go watch his raccoon video, right? So I just watched that today, right? And why have I been in a battle with squirrels for like 4 weeks? Right? Like, for real. So it makes me feel like, and you said like the trickster or the thief, and squirrels are very intelligent. Okay, they have Eshu energy. Okay, so I felt like we were experiencing similar experiences, and we were talking about the Uranus, and the Jupiter conjunction, and how it would affect both Aquarius and Taurus being fixed signs, and you and I both being Aquarius and Taurus. It's just really weird shit. And my followers know that I'm at war with these squirrels in my yard because I feed the mothers. Okay, so means I feed the birds, right? And the birds, let me tell you, I have all types of videos. There's owls, there's cranes, there's all kinds of stuff, right? But these damn squirrels keep robbing from the mothers. And I don't want to stop giving the offerings to the mothers, but the squirrel's fat as hell. He's like a 6-pound squirrel. Like, what I'm saying? So when I saw your video, I was like, I don't know if all fixed signs is dealing with something like this and the animals, or what is happening, but I just found it very ironic, and I wanted to share that with you.
Well, thank you. And here's another one ad. I haven't had a chance to do the video. There was a baby snake in the house the other day. And so the snake, this is this book right here.
Okay.
I recommend
and is that
everybody.
by Ted? Who's the writer?
It's by Ted Andrews.
Okay.
Animal Speaks. So, the snake is supposed to, aside from the negatives, the snake it's funny we ended on Scorpio energy, Pluto, because the snake is associated with Scorpio. It's regeneration.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It can be prosperity. It can represent rebirth. And while it was unnerving, I'm trying to take them out the house to school. It's like, damn, now I got to get a snake. And I'm talking about the frustration. I could have punched through the wall. It was so. And as I calmed down, got him out of here, and I had to go back and just sit and think like, whoa, wait a minute. What are the potential implications here? And this happened right before the Uranus Jupiter conjunction. Your conversation you had with me about the squirrel, you said an owl came on watch. My son comes home the other day with an owl. After I talked to you, he's made an owl in art class. Now, see, some people will say that's just, oh, you just, that's
Nope.
how the shit comes to me. Like, I have Neptune conjunct my ascendant. So my magic is the world speaks to me. Like, if I got a problem, I go out and a truck may drive by on the side of the truck, somebody's tag, you know, billboard may speak to me. I feel like the animals come and bring me messages, you know, something like my child, my son, who's a Pisces, the Pisces child, all this we've been talking about, 12th house. Lovely and I had this conversation. Then my Pisces son comes and brings an owl home. I don't take that as just happenstance.
Right.
So I feel like there's wisdom. The owl is wisdom, for one. The snake is prosperity. It is the power of regeneration. The raccoon is telling us to be adaptive, to use all our gifts. Manifestation means to make your hands holy. Fest means feast, holy. And man means hands. So the manifest is to make your hands holy. How are you utilizing what you got? You know, and even the frustration of the squirrel to me is like the raccoon. They are adaptive, they are opportunists, you know, and I think these animals are coming and bringing us downloads.
I also would say that the squirrel is a forager. Okay, so they store.
Taurus, preparation.
They store for the unknown. So yeah, that was my takeaway from that. But I would like to say to all of y'all who have spent time with us today, I hope that you enjoy our conversations, because this is really what the shit is like when we have even the private sessions. It's really like this. And I feel like, you know, we do not know each other personally. We met online in the TikTok. Okay. And I feel like we have been put together to share this information with the collective from both a spiritual and astrological perspective. So, again, I'm just going to repeat and with the Alpha Omega and start and leave off where I started, to say that, you know, follow us on all platforms and look out for the upcoming podcast release, because as we know, social media, you know, they're going to be putting some restrictions. And if you don't want to lose access or want to continue to store up or forage for information with us, you want to be following us on all platforms. So that's what I'd have to say to that.
All right. And on that note, I say thank you all as well. I enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next one.
Bye, guys.
Peace.
Peace. There we go.